So quick disclaimer before I get into the core of the video. 1. Don't insult the devs or testers of the game because they have to deal with their own life, school, work, and other shit. They don't get paid much for this project that they sunk a shit ton of time and energy into. They need to take their time, and being a dick to the devs doesn't make them want to change and doesn't help improve their game. And this is not going to be me just taking a piss out of the game and shitting all over it, even though that is the fun part. This is for people who actually care about the health and longevity of Balanced Craftwars. Number 2, I'm not going to be getting the community suggestions, the BCW server, or moderation/staff, because that's its own mess. I just want to purely focus on the game at hand and its current state right now. Number 3, this is for the community. Stop sucking the game's cock. Be willing to admit this game's faults and shortcomings. Be willing to admit that your favorite game in the whole wide world, your perfect little child, has major flaws and issues, because that's a part of how this game's going to get better. Be open-minded to people's ideas and opinions and get your head out of your own ass. 4, I've sunk many hours into this game. I've been collecting many notes and feedback from all spectrums of players, from people who breed this game to the newbies, champions, and experts who just started. So with that being said, let's get into the first part. Why the hell do we actually play this game? What draws attention to this game? Why do people take so much time into it? Well, because 1, we see the game has huge potential, and we want to be rewarded with power. We wanted to be rewarded with the effort that we put in to the game. A tangible challenge. That's crucial for any game, but yes, we want a tangible challenge. And we want to have something to work towards. We want to have something that gets us fired up to want to actually play the fucking game. And we want to have multiple ways to play the game. We don't want to just gravitate to one fucking style of play and just brain dead follow the same shit as everyone else. That's boring. And lastly, the other reason why we are so attracted to this damn game is because other MMOs and RPGs are either boring, heavily played with microtransactions, or the devs don't give two shits about the game. They have a whole book of progression systems, or they have no incentive in endless, meaningless grind. It feels like a day job. It feels like fucking school. We've not only seen this in all the Roblox RPGs, but other major titles of games as well. The scripting and coding. This game uses Nectar scripting and coding from the original Craftwars, which is almost, or I think around a decade ago, 10 years ago. And what the devs have the power to do is very restricted and limited due to using this original code of Craftwars, and it limits the creativity and the possible changes that they can make to the game, which only gets worse as time goes on because the game needs to develop and grow, and it creates very fundamental and structural issues. And at some point down the road, if the game was to evolve even further, then they're going to have to rescript the code of Craftwars. And if they don't, then it's just going to create a lot more fucking issues for the game. That's not good. There's part 3 is RNG or luck. Now, mainly there's nothing wrong with luck. It's the game's way of getting your playtime, basically. But luck becomes a problem when it's insanely rare and shoved down in the player's throat in every single part of the game, especially when it's for the most mundane shit that's essential to progressing. Prime example of this would be biomes. Biomes are the absolute key to progression and gear, and it's where 90% of where your playtime is actually going to be spent playing the game. I don't give an ounce of a fuck how much of a luck-based game this is. It's downright unhealthy to the player base. It's not fun or enjoyable experience to brain-dead farm and pretend that you actually enjoy this part of the game. I'd rather wash dishes or learn fucking calculus. If you're not on that damn Discord server in the Biome Raid channel for 40 hours to the point where your chest smells like hot mayo and sweaty nut sacks, or you're leeching off your friends' macroing, or you have multiple accounts, you can kiss all progression as an average player goodbye. Is that not a giant red flag? Having ridiculous luck chance doesn't make the game enjoyable. It's an extremely lazy way to make sure you play a safely at your game, making progression more centered around fighting the damn bosses that you spent the fucking time to create instead of waiting for me to fight them. This doesn't extend to biomes, it also goes as far as mining boss drops in the game. And side note, I'm fully aware the biome rework is being introduced, but 1, we don't know when the biome rework is being implemented. 2, we don't know what the biome rework is actually going to do to the biomes themselves. And 3, if the biome rework is being implemented, it should directly fix the root issue and let us fight the bosses to progress forward. Just boss drops in general. Making boss drops extremely RNG based, especially when the RNG doesn't match how powerful or useful an item is equivalent to working 12-hour shifts, barely keeping the rent paid, only for skills shaking their ass to get paid double your income. Making the boss drops RNG is a bad design because again I'm wasting my time. Every run I do doesn't give me the item I need to move forward is wasted time, wasted energy, wasted effort, wasted labor. Think about how long you've grinded BCW or any RPG game for that matter only for your time to be wasted, and think how much time is spent actually progressing forward. It's pretty horribly split, isn't it? Part 4. Boss and enemy design. So first question we have to ask is, what makes a boss fight good? I would say personally from experience and looking at other games and looking at what boss fights actually attract people and what boss fights people enjoy, is 1, a range of attacks that keep things fresh, a weak spot or vulnerability that can be exploited. You should be able to predict and avoid attacks if you play the situation correctly. The bosses should react to how the player is playing, and you have to increase your level of game mechanics, game elements, and intelligence to beat the boss. So on the other side of the coin, the problem with BCWO fights, especially at endgame and tournament, is the extreme damage in one-shots, no punishing or counterattacks, no vulnerabilities or weak spots, no interesting or innovative mechanics, RNG based boss fights and attacks, and unavoidable attacks. We can see all of these things play out on bosses like Algar, Gilgamesh, Auracid, Ocania, Umber Hollow, and I think there's still some others. Now, they might not make the fight unplayable or not beatable, but it's not an enjoyable fight. The main point is that the fight should be enjoyable and well thought out. And the methods to beating these bosses are all the exact same thing every single time. The way to beat bosses in BCW: cycle through iframes, run around in circles, and burst down with DPS as fast as possible, and spam summons. That is the formula for every single boss fight in this game. There's no weak spot or attack pattern, you just burst down with DPS as fast as possible. The gameplay when you're at Equinox tier is no different from when you're at pure hard mode. And most boss fights attacks as RNG. They don't have combos or ways of linking their attacks. Now we've seen this in the Ocania recently where she has attacks but she has combos but the damage is kind of just unavoidable. It's a very weird sense, like her combos are kind of just unavoidable and you're mostly just trying to out heal her damage, which is not really fun, and your healing is just reduced, so it just doesn't make for a fun experience for a fight at all. Alrighty, so first off, don't make stupidly overpowered unattainable weapons or items. Examples of this would be Equinox Og Origin, Ariastra, Omega Death Scythe, Trepid, Golducarp, and many other event items. Introducing items that are extremely broken on release only for them to get gutted into the ground and never get used. Crimson Claw, if you played the Christmas event, is a great example of this. And a side note, here's just a suggestion, is to only close the event shop and allow players to keep playing the events and getting their drops. This, I think, just straight up gives you more content. It doesn't restrict drops and make sure the content is actually being used and not being walled off for an entire half year. Anyways, continuing on with balancing. No class should be better than the other, especially with how expensive the items are. Some classes completely outshine others in raw DPS, cough cough, gambler, and some classes make events and bosses miles easier than using other classes. This makes the investments that you put in items feel worthless, especially when they're nerfed to the ground. Another note on balancing. Gutting and nerfing items and accessories is not how you balance a game. It's very lazy. All this does is make people not use an item or build at all and switching something else out. You're not getting to the heart of the problem. You're not fixing the core issue. And to add on to that, accessories themselves are also their own shitfest. Accessories have been nerfed so hard to the point that they feel no different than the base damage. And accessories should modify how you play the game and what you use, and not just give you some damn damage and stat boost. That was the primary problem with accessories beforehand. And accessories, in my opinion, personally, was best done with Summoner because you can increase the summon life, you can increase the amount of summons you have, you can increase the summon health. If only you could do that with, let's say, Melee, where an accessory that makes you increase M1 speed the more you use your abilities. Or with Mage, every debuff you apply resets your cooldown by 20 seconds. Or some shit, I don't know. But make it so where the accessories modify how you play and not just give you a stat boost. And I think that's key for making more interesting and more powerful ways of playing the game. And next point on balancing, there are a shit ton of weapons in this game that have incredible design. A ton of weapons that have incredible design and effort put into them, only for them to not be used because everything else just does more damage and provides more value. Instead of basing everything around damage, items need to have special well thought out abilities that can synergize with other items to create powerful combinations. And the same can be said for armor as well. Armors just give you health, and they don't have, well, all path does this properly, where it gives you certain attributes and different buffs. But armor for main path doesn't do this. Armor just gives you health and speed and jump height, which is pretty useless. Not useless, but it's very linear and it's very it's very shallow, I'd say. And this can also be said for debuffs as well, in which 90% of the debuffs in this game are completely fucking useless, except for Marked, Riptide, Decay, and Charm. I know those for a fact are actually useful and actually have some effect in game. But most of the other ones don't really have any value or playtime in game. And they just feel like wasted space, you know? So I've been pretty much shitting on the game the entire time, so I feel like it's a good time to actually acknowledge things that the game does very well. And one is that it's making, the game is making actual quality of life changes. That's been really inspiring and great to see. And multiple bug fixes. Even though there's still a shit ton of bugs, it's a bug fest, but bugs are being fixed. And they're being fixed well, which is very nice to see actually. And this is just my opinion. I think the art style and design of this game is amazing. And I'm not talking about your stupid ass R34 and R63 golden fox and female enemies in this fucking game. I don't care about that shit. But like the actual art style and design is very cool of this game. I like it a lot. And for Balanced Craftwars, things that Balanced Craftwars has done right, I would say Alt Path. Alt Path is, I'm very hyped about Alt Path actually. Alt Path is very cool. I'd say, and I feel like they're putting a lot more love into Alt Path and Alt Path progression than they are the main path. And they're a lot more creative with Alt Path too. And I'm just really excited to see how Alt Path goes and how well it's done. And also, I feel like the Zug Mothership too. Zug Mothership is a very well done, I'd say. Even though it's on the easy side, I feel like it's a very good change of pace from what we've seen in the other Craft Wars fights. It has a different feel to it, and it's, in my opinion, it's actually fun. And I feel like more boss fights should be like the Zug Mothership. That's where you're only just pressing buttons, but it should have more depth to it, like the Zug Mothership did. And I think that's a really good step in the right direction for the game. With all that being said, I still have faith in this game's future. If you made it here, thank you for watching. Any and all feedback is appreciated. Share your thoughts in the comments, no matter how stupid they are. I'll respond to all of them. And have a good one. Thank you.